What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Tuesday, May the 13th. A lot of the people that are presenting information to every one of us, including myself, because I'm doing a few interviews too, where we've spoken about really consequential stuff. I don't know if you guys caught it, but that conversation I had with Fepo from Podcast Paranormal, I think that was a very consequential conversation. I had another one with Matthew Pines, for example, another one with Kai Dickens. Just recently, I had another one with Whitley Strieber. After the last 2024 attempt to pass legislation, and it didn't even go to the floor, a lot of the people involved in this started saying that whistleblowers were going to come forward, a lot of them. And so far, let's see. We have Jake Barber, we have Harold Malmgren, we have Dr. Rogers, we have the Border Patrol whistleblower who just came out with Ross Coulthart on Reality Check. And obviously, and of course, we have Matthew Brown, who came out in a 3-part interview with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. And some people I saw were complaining that Knapp and Corbell were monetizing this and monetizing the truth and all this bullshit argument, because it is a bullshit argument. If you're a content creator, you choose the way you present the stuff you give to people. Why aren't you telling the same thing to journalists who give you a scoop, a major scoop that is also the truth? And they also divide it into 3 parts. But since it's not UFOs, then it's not the same standard. That's bullshit, man. So whoever complains about this, why would you ask someone to give up their entire life and their entire time dedicated to this and not get any type of compensation for it? It just makes no sense. People need to eat, bro. It's just that simple. So yes, it was a 3-parter. I, for one, completely agree with this type of rollout. Honestly, and the Harold Malmgren interview from Jesse Michaels was amazing, but I come from a breaking news environment, so it's maybe a taste kind of thing. I don't like really long form conversations like that. I like them to be sectioned because it's just like, if I see a long ass interview of any topic, if it's not timestamped, I just don't watch it, or I don't feel the need to watch it. So it's better for it to be sectioned like that. I prefer it to be like this over 3 weeks. Jeremy didn't even take that long to release it. So complaining about that is really, you know. So yeah, the 3rd part released today. And I want to apologize for not being able to release my thoughts on it and my reaction to it right after, because good news, my wife came back and she is getting her PhD. She went to a different city to finish her PhD and she's going to get it. So she finally returned last night. So I spent the entire day with her and I'm really happy that she's back. I really missed her. So that's why I'm delivering this video right now and not earlier. So I apologize for that. But man, oh man, was this a great way to go out for Jeremy and George Knapp, because the best parts of the entire interview were on the 3rd part. It was incredible. And it's already been established that Matthew Brown is who he says he is. It's already been established that he was briefing members of Congress right before last year's hearings. It was also established that there was some type of fuckery going on in the hearings and he didn't testify. He did confirm that had he been asked to testify on that date, he would have said no because he didn't feel prepared for it. And I can understand that completely. But there was fuckery going on there, because and even Corbell and Knapp showed the faces of 2 staffers who all 3 of them agree that they're like unelected bureaucrats who were influencing these Congress people's decision making process. And even Matt said that they might be CIA assets. And they are commanded, according to Matt, by the executive branch, who has no business doing anything in Congress or the Senate for that matter. The executive branch exists by itself, and then all the other branches of government are different entities as well. And one cannot influence the other in the decision making process. Each entity has their own systems and they need to be respected because it is the law. And the fact that Matt Brown is saying that the executive branch is meddling in Congress affairs, that is extremely concerning. That's the first red flag that we got. And I guess that for me, the most important statement from Matthew Brown came directed at military people and other whistleblowers who are either about to come out or are thinking about coming out and are really disappointed at the way the government officials have handled this, specifically Congress. And it is because of these unelected bureaucrats, according to Matt Brown. So I'm going to show you the statement that, if you ask me, I wouldn't have put that much attention to it, but I was happy that Matthew Brown closed his final statement with that because it is one of the age-old debates, not just in ufology, but since the ancient Greeks. We're talking about the never-ending debate of materialism against idealism. And this is what it boils down to, in my opinion. Because in ufology, there's ufology's secularist side that think that this has to do specifically with nuts and bolts, and that if we're dealing with a higher intelligence, some people are conflating it with God because of their religious dogma that was superimposed by organized religion throughout millennia. That is one. And the other one is the people who believe that this is spiritual in nature and that there is some kind of a spiritual war going on and that there's angels and demons and that God completely exists and it's like the biggest power in the universe. That's the other side. And there's always been this bickering and debate over who's right and who's wrong. And I've spoken to a few people who are experts on this subject of spirituality. One of them is Dr. Branco, who I spoke to a few months ago, link in the description. And there is a concern because on one side, there's people who always correlate spirituality with religious dogma. And there's always people from the nuts and bolts side who do the same. And I think that is a gross mistake because even if religion didn't exist, there's organized religion, that is, there are mystical traditions from even before these more organized religions existed, specifically the Abrahamic ones, that already had many concepts of spirituality. And they didn't necessarily talk about gods per se, but about how humans need to find a balance between the scientific world and the spiritual world. And we need to learn how to coexist right in the middle of it. And as I've told you before, one of the main reasons that I absolutely adore Dr. Jacobo Greenberg's work is because of that, because he grew up as a scientist. Then he went to New York and he started studying more consciousness matters. He dabbled in some stuff about spirituality, and then he just plunged right into shamanism, which is another form of spirituality. And he always lived right in the middle of it because one side always thought he was a cook because he always wanted to talk about or investigate spirituality and shamanism. And the other side thought that he was too materialistic because he was a scientist. And he was never able to fully find his place between both sides. And I think there is an issue here between nuts and bolts folk in ufology and consciousness folk in ufology. Because to me, consciousness is spirituality. It's just that scientists want to call it consciousness because they don't want to call it spirituality, but it's the same thing. It's what we're trying to study here. And yes, it also has scientific components to it, but we need to understand them better. And if we have these mental blocks, we won't be able to. So I am really happy that Matt, even though I think that this was his personal opinion at the very end of the sentence, I'm very happy that he addressed this. And as you can see, I'm going to show you guys a tweet that I wrote right after. And it goes like this. My buddy UAP Juan, who is he's one of the most known UFO researchers on Twitter. He posted this quote, which is what Matt Brown closed with the entire show. Like right after he said the final line, the show ended like that. And it sent everybody into frenzy. Some people agree, the most secular ones obviously don't. And I can already see a lot of these people that are like really, really secular and really anti-God that supported Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp and Matthew Brown. And now that Brown mentioned God, I can guarantee you that they won't support him or them anymore. He was just expressing his opinion, in my opinion. He said, and I quote, "You are not free, and this reality has far more to it than you have been allowed to believe. And God is real." And you can interpret this in any way you want. You can say that Tom DeLonge was right and that he was talking about gods, as in with a little g, or you can talk about Matthew just saying that God with a big G is real. And that's his personal opinion. I am 99% convinced that if you asked him after he said this quote, he would probably tell you that that's what he meant. He wasn't telling you like a definitive statement that God actually exists. Some people think it does, some people don't. But I wanted to show you what I wrote right after I saw this quote because it was like a gut reaction. Here's what I said. That last part is a gut punch to secularism and ufology. I've heard multiple insensitive and uninformed comments from known people in this community who have bashed the concept because they want for this to just be a nuts and bolts issue. According to Matt Brown, it's not. I, however, remain agnostic. The role organized religion has played in keeping people subservient and uninformed for millennia is at the core of all this, and it needs to be addressed. I've had about enough of these quote unquote intellectuals criticizing spirituality, a concept foreign to them that they stigmatize because they simply do not understand. So that's how I reacted to that. And that for me was the one phrase that made everybody go wild. And some people, like really known people in the ufology community, did not like Matt saying this. I guess they didn't understand the messaging. And that's what I will say about that. But after that, there are two more parts of this that I have to show you guys. The other one is perhaps the most stern message that Matthew Brown gave to military personnel and whistleblowers who are thinking about coming forward. And I would say one of the few direct messages to them, not just from him, but anywhere in history. Because right now he's having the courage to come forward without going through Dobser and many of the things that he's saying. And the fact that he's doing that and other people are still thinking about coming out instead of coming out, I think that's a gross mistake. So this is what he said, and I quote from Matthew Brown. "I'd like to say directly to the members of our military and our intelligence community, the time is now where you must choose whether you honor your oath or your orders. And if you have courage, you already know the answer. But for the rest of you, lead, follow, or get out of the way. Get out of the way." And this is something that I'm sure resonated with everybody who was looking at this and thinking about all of those people that are very disenchanted by the way Congress has behaved over the last few weeks, who were thinking about coming forward. But we needed somebody like Matt to say this. I hope that this causes an effect, a domino effect, so more whistleblowers can come forward and start telling their truth, just like Matt did today and over the last 3 weeks. That was incredibly brave, man. And I could feel the fear. And I did feel hopeful because you already know, and you said it in this third interview, that you were alone for a long time, but not anymore. You don't feel alone anymore. And you're not, man. Thank you for doing this. I'm just going to show you another, and I think this is arguably la crème de résistance, you could say, because this is from the final part of the interview where Matt talks about everything. And Corbell even mentions the others, just like Tom DeLonge has mentioned a lot. And this exchange that is about 3 or so minutes is George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell really going deep into the questions of what Matt knows and what he's been exposed to. Because to make it clear, Matt Brown wrote this Immaculate Constellation report after being privy to classified information, including documents, videos, satellite imagery, all kinds of stuff that made him completely convinced that he was looking at something anomalous. And he's been researching it for years. And the stuff he found out is what he's going to talk about right here.
Somebody was flying these things that crashed. Somebody built these things that are being reverse engineered. Who's that somebody? And why don't they come forward? I mean, you may not have seen that in a document or a file or something somewhere, but you've thought about it. You're a smart guy. What are your thoughts on the big picture questions? Who are they? Why are they here? Why don't they show us what's going on?
Great questions from George Knapp.
I think I have a good degree of confidence that the reason they're here is us. I think life, especially sentient life, is a precious thing. And I think to some, it might be a resource. I think humanity to some level is a resource for them.
We've already talked about this. There's multiple different authors throughout history that somehow think the same thing that Matt thinks here. I would just ask, where does this information come from? Does it come from all the outside literature, or does it come from inside information that you actually are privy to? That'd be cool to know, Matt. I hope that you do more podcasts like, for example, Jesse Michaels or Chris Ramsey, where you can go out and expand a little more in this, because I have these questions. Where do you come up with this, what you're talking about right now? Is this actual data that is actionable, or is this part of the decades-long literature that has been written? And where does that information come from? So, yeah, that's my question.
Like a commodity?
Possibly a commodity, possibly a form of entertainment, possibly medical related.
Form of entertainment, like the Roman Colosseum or something like that? Or different intelligences come here and see all the shit show that is going on, the wars and everything, and they entertain from that? That's weird. Or medical related, as in all of our body parts are used for them. Man, that really opens up a whole world of possibilities, doesn't it?
Think they live here?
Yes.
For all intents and purposes?
Yes.
Always?
I don't know about always, but it certainly appears that they have been here for most of recorded history. At least some element of this has been here for most of human recorded history.
This goes back to some of the work that for example, Dana Pasolka or Jason Giorgiani have written about, of the many recorded instances in oral traditions, hieroglyphics, the Bible, paintings, where they depict objects in the sky, different representations of them, but they depict them, and there's a lot of different interpretations of what these objects may be. In some cases, they think they could be angels. Some cases, they think it could be time travelers. But Matt goes a little deeper into that.
You think we would see them if they didn't let us see them? Like, even with our more advanced sensors, that they pop up, but they can also disappear. And do they allow us to get these glimpses? Is that a game of some sort, I wonder? Or an education
It's a
process?
bizarre one that I could not understand if it is a game. I think they're both just as powerful as we think, but also less. And I think there is not a single they here. Certainly multiple factions of the same species, if not multiple species.
Whoa. Maybe that's why we see different types of grays, right? That's wild. And again, just like Dr. Eric Davis last week, saying that multiple species have been talked about and reported, Matthew Brown is telling you the same thing, but he's not completely sure. So,
and all the complexity that brings, which might be our best hope.
Do they have an agenda? There's different types. You know, what are your philosophies on this? Like, who are the others? Why are they here? And you
there it is. Corbell said the others. So is this now canon or something? Because DeLong is saying it, now Corbell is saying it. It's been said for many, many years, the others phrase.
you've touched upon it. I know we're kind of going back a little bit, but that is the big question. And I just wanted to separate so people understand your exposure and your personal conclusions.
So I have been exposed to no direct information on the anatomy, biology, intentions, culture, politics.
Okay, so I wanted to touch on this because I think it's really important. You guys need to go back and read Whitley Strieber's The Fourth Mind. He goes deeply into the details of these gray beings' anatomy and about some of their personalities and way of thinking and all that. And it strikes me as if Matt Brown is talking about the same kind of information that Whitley Strieber was exposed to. And this is important too, because I don't know if you guys know or remember, but you can go back to it. I'm going to leave it in the description. When I asked Whitley Strieber about the connection or possible connection of his book coming out on the same week as Jake Barber and Dr. John Blitch came out, he immediately moved away from the question and said he wouldn't go in there. I'm not going into that, he said. And that's just like an intuition that I have, because I found it a really interesting correlation that Whitley Strieber's book, as important as I think it is, because it's really descriptive, came out on the same week that these guys came out. And now Matthew Brown is talking about this. So another correlation.
Never came across those files.
Never came across those. I think those are all some of the deepest secrets.
Right.
So Whitley Strieber's book, when he talks about the biology, he mentions, I think it was a Reddit leak or a 4chan leak, I'm not sure, but he mentions that in this leak, they describe these beings almost to a T to what he's experienced personally over decades-long relationship with them. So make of that what you will. Matt hasn't been exposed to that, but I think that is what he's talking about. And Whitley Strieber did talk about that in his book.
Right. They would be if this is correct information.
What I have learned is that we live in a dream, a carefully constructed reality. We make use of a science that is tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted. I think we are left behind.
Humans.
I think normies, the normal humans, the people have been
That's scary, because it goes deep into a lot of conspiracy theories and lore about this elite group of people that are either a breakaway civilization and are already off planet colonizing other places, and they know that Earth is doomed, and they just don't care about the rest of us. This also goes a little bit into the underground facilities that some people have reported, that there's supposed to be hundreds of them. I don't know if that's real or not. It may be. But I think this is what he is also alluding to, that just regular humans like us are going to be left behind, or are already being left behind. What does that mean? That's strange.
And left behind us.
Mm-hmm.
People need to understand that we might have freedom of speech, but that has been subverted. We do not have freedom of inquiry. We are blocked from learning what we need to know. Just in the public world, we are blocked from advancing in science. We are taught false science intentionally to prevent us from learning more. We live in the Matrix. It's just much more boring than the movie.
A lot of very interesting quotes here. A lot to ponder. I know that there's going to be many different types of reactions to this. I want to hear yours. What did you think about the 3 points that I told you about? I want to hear what you thought about how he described how that fuckery was going on during the hearings. And these unelected bureaucrats that have been influencing congresspeople that are potentially from their staff. So let me know what you think about that. What do you think about the mentioning of God, that it does exist? What do you think about the message to military personnel and whistleblowers, and about this, that we are a resource and that we're living in the Matrix? What do you think about that? What do you think about the others? Let me know in the comments. I think this was a very important day because of Matt. So thank you, man. Let me know. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can get notified when a new video drops. If you want to support the channel in any other way, I'm going to leave a few links in the description. Take your pick. You can also become a member. You can also support us on KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated, so thank you. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive, like Matt. Bye.